There we go. So you can see slides. We're good. Okay. Hello, my name is Julie Hardesty, and I'm speaking to you today from the ancestral homelands of the Miami, Delaware, Potawatomi, and Shawnee people. This is the land on which Indiana University Bloomington sits. I'm using this space to recognize this fact and that we must do more to make the IUB campus a more supportive and inclusive space for Native and Indigenous students, faculty, and staff. Lynette Rail is presenting with me today from Cornell University. Cornell University is located on the traditional homelands of the Cayuga Nation. The Cayuga Nation are members of the Haudenosaunee Confederacy, an alliance of 6 sovereign nations with a historic and contemporary presence on this land. The Confederacy precedes the establishment of Cornell University, New York State, and the United States of America. We acknowledge the painful history of the Cayuga Nation dispossession and honor the ongoing connection of the Cayuga Nation people, past and present, to these lands and waters. These reminders may be just words, but those words do mean something, and that this reparative work continues. I'm also the Hyrax product owner within the Samvera community, and I'll be giving you an update on the Hyrax interest group and the Hyrax maintenance working group today. Lynette Rail will be giving an update on the work to Valkyrize Hyrax, which means making Hyrax work with storage backends other than Fedora 4. So first up, a little bit about Hyrax. Hyrax is a software engine built using Ruby on Rails that can generate a digital repository application for discovery, access, and management of digital collections. That application is currently built to connect to the Fedora 4 digital repository, and backend changes are in the works to allow for connections to other digital repository backends, such as Postgres and Fedora 6. That backend work is what we refer to as Valkyrie. If you know about Haiku, Haiku is using Hyrax for each of the tenant applications that it is running. So now the Hyrax interest group update. We'll start there. So as the product owner for Hyrax, I facilitate the Hyrax interest group meetings. These are open to anyone interested in checking in on what's happening in Hyrax. We have discussed all sorts of Hyrax happenings, from release announcements to the pledge drive, to position descriptions for finding the next Hyrax tech lead and the next product owner after me. There's a lot of information shared and a lot of topics discussed, but it doesn't take a lot of time to tune in and catch up. So we meet once a month on the second Wednesday of every month at 11:30 a.m. Eastern. The meeting is 30 minutes right before the Samvera Tech Call. So in fact, our next meeting is next week on Wednesday, May 11th at 11:30 a.m. Eastern. And this is in fact an open invitation for all of you to join us. So up next, I'll move on to the Hyrax Maintenance Working Group update. And the Hyrax Maintenance Working Group is a group of folks from the community who regularly participate in working on the ever-present backlog of issues reported about Hyrax. They also support new feature work brought into the Hyrax codebase and help with testing and verifying changes before Hyrax code releases. Daniel Pierce from Indiana University, Rebecca Kotze from UNC Chapel Hill, Tao Zhao from the Federal Reserve Bank of Minneapolis, and Jessica Hilt from UC San Diego are the current members who have been serving on the working group by participating in cycles of sprints for 2 weeks on and 2 weeks off. Our current cycle just ended for January through April of this year, but many of these folks have actually been participating at least since January of 2021. So that's going on 1.5 years. They really are superstars and are keeping Hyrax work moving forward. In addition, we have a Samvera maintenance pledge drive that we're trying this year. And for the January through April cycle, the Hyrax maintenance working group pledges have added up, and we have also received some spectacular help for Hyrax from pledged hours completed by Adam Arling and Matt Jordan at Northwestern University, Fritz Freiheit and Connor O'Malley at University of Michigan, and Ayub Balemli, Brad Watson, and Emily Porter at Emory University. They've helped to close issues, test features, and keep our maintenance work moving forward. So you too can pledge hours to the Samvera community by contacting Heather Greer-Klein, the Samvera community manager. One result of this effort is the closing of 15 issues from the Hyrax backlog. 10 of those were bug fixes and have resulted in improvements to location information for works, clarifying and improving in documentation, improving file versioning features, and seeing works go through the mediated workflow correctly. We've also seen code contributions from folks in the community outside of pledged hours that have helped move things along. So Rob Kaufman, Alicia Evans, April Rieger, and Sarah G at softwareservicesbyscientists.com, formerly Notch8, they contributed code that updated analytics in the dashboard for Hyrax 3.3.0. Tamsin Johnson and Alexandra Dunn from UC Santa Barbara contributed in addition to the Hyrax maintenance working group and pledged hours for the 3.4.0 release. And each of these releases has included more Hyrax-Valkyrie work. So Lynette Rail has been the main force behind that work, along with Tamsin Johnson and Alexander Dunn at UC Santa Barbara, Chris Colvard from Indiana University, Jose Blanco from University of Michigan, and the focused efforts of Anna Headley, Trey Pendragon, Sean Ellis, and Elliot Jordan at Princeton University during this time. So I hope I'm not leaving out anyone, as there have been many people who have contributed so far to this effort. And this work is still ongoing, and Lynette is going to talk about it in more detail, but bear with me here as I try to kind of talk through a little visualization and see how I think this work is going to be progressing. So Valkyrie work is happening behind the scenes so that it can be incorporated alongside how Hyrax is currently, let's see, how Hyrax is currently working now and does not get in the way of the current functionality, which is using Active Fedora to connect to Fedora 4. It's a bit of parallel work, but this provides the advantage of having this new pattern and these new backend capabilities available for testing and development, while features like analytics and other release updates are still being made. This has also resulted in the Valkyrized adapter for Active Fedora known as Wings, which is available alongside the current Active Fedora connector. All right, so once Valkyrized Hyrax is ready, that is a major release, and we'll have a Postgres adapter ready to use. The concept we have for this release is that it will continue to provide Active Fedora through Wings. So the Active Fedora connection that is being used now to Fedora 4 is still possible in the initial Valkyrie Hyrax release. This version of Hyrax will be available for a time. And the idea would be that you could update this Hyrax without changing what you are using as your backend, and then move to Fedora 6 or Postgres or something else if you have another adapter for a backend in mind. A later major release of Hyrax would then remove Wings, taking out Active Fedora and simplifying the overall code base. So thank you for walking through that visualization with me, and we can discuss further if there are edits to be made to that, but that's my current understanding. So another big area of work for Hyrax is maintenance work to upgrade to Rails 6. We're currently using Rails 5.2.7, and that version is reaching end of life on June 1st. To be able to use Rails 6, we need to upgrade to Blacklight 7 and Bootstrap 4, and those upgrades have to be done simultaneously. Work has been happening gradually for a while to reach that point where we can upgrade to Rails 6. Margaret Keevy at UC Santa Barbara started the latest round of upgrade work in January before the Dev Congress, kicking off the BL7 Bootstrap 4 branch in GitHub that's linked here in this slide. Matt Jordan and Adam Arling at Northwestern completed pledged hours at the January Dev Congress to continue this work, along with Dhananji Watthana from Indiana University. Brad Watson and Ayub Balemli from Emory University are working on this now, along with Daniel Pierce from Indiana University. So there have been quite a few folks involved, but there is more work to do to finish this up. Emily Porter and I are aiming to conduct feature testing on this branch so we can have a more precise set of issues to work through to complete this upgrade work. That's what we want to have prepared for the May Dev Congress. So work that week can focus on discrete tasks for this upgrade. So the May Dev Congress is happening May 16th through 20th. And this is an invitation not just to the developers and testers in the audience, but also to the managers and administrators who are tuning in. Join this effort by supporting your folks who are interested in participating. Give them a time to be part of this community. A little bit of effort from a lot of people makes a difference. Something we are currently missing right now from our Hyrax maintenance working group is a Hyrax tech lead, someone to help with sprint cycle planning, developer questions and pull request review, packaging and cutting releases, and helping developers become involved and stay involved in Hyrax development work. We don't have anyone in the community with all of the answers or all of the capacity to plan all of the technical moves going forward. We can't expect that, and we're not expecting that. The good news is that what we need is someone with the capacity to be curious and investigate and be able to make decisions based on what they learn. The other good news is that we need someone who can field questions and ask questions and can show by example that you don't have to know everything to contribute, and that all of you as developers can contribute to maintenance and feature development of the Hyrax engine, whether that's fixing bugs, upgrading gem dependencies, or reworking part of the engine for Valkyrization. what you or your organization can bring to the role of Hyrax Tech Lead is positive. And as an open source project, that's what we need to keep moving forward. The even better news is that the Samvera board has approved funding this role for up to $45,000 for 1 year. I see this as an opportunity to use that as a time frame, and within that time frame, stabilize a process so we can schedule the next person to come in as the next Hyrax Tech Lead after this time period. We don't just need a Hyrax Tech Lead right now, we need Hyrax Tech Leads, and we need the community to recognize that all of you are those leaders. The best news is that we do have interest from an institution in the community regarding this role. It's nothing definitive yet, but I am at least hopeful, which is nice. So we also still need the next Hyrax product owner. Based on my experience over the last 1.5 years as Hyrax product owner, I know there are others in the community who can do this and would probably enjoy it. You do not have to be an expert in all things Hyrax. You will learn by doing, and it is possible to do all of these things: planning sprint work, facilitating the monthly interest group meetings, running Docker on your work machine, writing release notes and documentation, testing issues in the web application. These are all concrete things you can do. You can schedule time to do it. You do not have to do this work all day, every day. The community is helping to figure out larger maintenance issues like tracking gem dependency schedules that can improve road mapping for Hyrax maintenance. Having a Hyrax Tech Lead again is going to make things smoother to bring in development work and developers. And I'm already here doing the product owner work. You can start dipping your toes in the summer with me and figure out how you want to do things as product owner by the time you begin in that role at the end of October. I have not heard any expressions of interest yet for product owner, but I know there are people who can do this and would be fantastic for Hyrax and for the Samvera community. So please get in touch with me and let's talk about it. And as always, we are taking pledges for Samvera community maintenance work, and Hyrax is one of the areas where you can pledge work. We have hex stickers and we are not afraid to use them. You can contact Heather Greer-Klein to make your pledge today. Part of that pledge work can be work towards Valkyrie. The Valkyrie work has been progressing significantly this entire time. And I think we are to the point where issues are defined and chunked small enough that developers familiar with Rails patterns can pick these up and work through them. Lynette is going to go into more detail now about that work, what that's entailed, and where things stand with Valkyrie at this point. So I'll turn it over, stop sharing and turn it over to you, Lynette.
All right. I'm glad that Julie did the sort of overview of what this effort is, because I'm not going to talk about that. I'm going to talk about sort of the state of things. So there have been 5 dev congresses since May of last year. Each one has had a part of it that was dedicated towards the Valkyrization of Hyrax process. So across those, we've had 104 PRs. And if you look even beyond the dev congresses, there have been over 200 PRs that have gone towards this effort. And you might notice in the January and March dev congress, there was significantly more PRs, and there's a reason for that. So a lot of work went on ahead of these major recent events that I'm going to describe that set the stage for us to be able to do this. So starting in September last year, there was a minimal viable product that was defined. And basically that was defined as CRUD. So create, read, update, and delete of all the major components in Hyrax. And once that was defined, we were able to set up Hyrax-PG. And this is a Hyrax application that only uses Postgres. There is no Fedora in there. So Postgres handles the application data and as well as the repository metadata. So when we first set it up, I will tell you that not much of anything worked. We could bring it up, but a lot of the functionality wasn't there. But by November, we were able to do some testing over Hyrax-PG on that MVP. And by January, early January, it was substantially operational under that minimal definition. And this set the stage for us to be able to do release testing. So the release testing is what we do before we make any Hyrax release. And so it's fairly comprehensive on the features that we want to be sure are in place. And that testing set the stage where we could define really clearly what we wanted to do. The Dev Congress that happened in March was 100% Hyrax-Valkyrization focused. And so the testing at that point was running about 18% before we started. So 18% passing, but you'll see that there were 71% that wasn't even tested. Now, some of that wasn't tested because we didn't have time, but a lot of that wasn't tested because there were blocking issues. And once this sprint was done, we were up to 35% passing, and only 39% couldn't be tested. You could see the failure rate goes up, but that's because we did more testing. So we were able to identify more things that didn't actually work. And the most recent numbers that I have is that 52% of the tests are passing and only 18% can't be tested. So the big question is, where are things and what kinds of work still needs to be done? So there's a couple of areas that are really big. The nesting of collections, it's blocking 25 tests because it's just not working. And we need someone to spend some focused time on making that work. I put general work code next, and that's because some of the other areas you'll see there aren't any tests listed. And that's because those all kind of fall under the works. And those 18 tests that I list there are the ones that sort of fall into those other areas. So derivatives is a big piece of work that has been being worked on for quite a while. There's been significant recent work, and I know that it is really almost done. And so I think that that's really under control. Embargoes and leases, that's one of the areas that has a lot of work that needs to be done. There's more than 25 tests that are failing. So some of the other areas are sharing, analytics, and search. And search is doing pretty good too. We've had some recent work that cleared a lot of that up. So how do you get started? Because we would like to invite everyone to be able to participate in this. And I think it is at the point where you can do that now, because most of the complex infrastructure pieces are in place and functional. So we're now working our way out to the edges of pieces that aren't quite working right yet. So if you haven't done any Valkyrie at all, you can do the dive into Valkyrie tutorial. And there is also instructions on how to set up the DASI test app. These are all links in here so that you can find those resources. And speaking of resources, there are various resources that you can connect to help you along. You can always ask questions on the Hyrax-Valkyrie channel. And then the last thing, of course, is to jump in and take an issue. So the other way you can help is we need testers to help keep this process going forward, because it's sort of an iterative loop. We fix something and then we see whether or not it fixed the release test. And sometimes it unveils other issues that have to be addressed. And so anyone who can do some testing is also very much grateful for that. So I do want to do a couple of specific shout outs. There's been some institutions and folks who've done a really big effort. DC for hosting Neurax PG, Julie Hardesty for coordinating the testing effort, Tamsin especially for his technical leadership and just putting in that solid infrastructure that allowed us to do the work in parallel to other work being done in Hyrax. Surf Lanier for blazing the trail for using Valkyrie with Hyrax, and Cornell for providing me with significant amount of time to help move this work forward. Indiana for consistently providing developers to help us work on this, and Princeton for dedicating a full 2 week, their full team for 2 whole weeks. And then I did my best here on the list of people who have participated as developers, testers, and the institutions who have contributed. I hope I haven't missed anyone. It was a little difficult to pull that together, and also to just acknowledge that there were a lot of people before this work started. This year's work started that also contributed significant efforts. And you can help. Join us. The Developer Congress for May is coming up very soon. So I invite you to come and join us and be part of that effort that pulls this across the finish line. And that is it.